Welcome, friend, to Life and Liberty Radio. I'm David Householder, here to encourage your pursuit of happiness. You and I are partners, exploring our shared spiritual journeys. Together, we're dreaming and working for a free society. Tell others today about our adventure in faith and freedom. So breathe in, open your mind, lift up your spirit. Let's get started. Well, I was sitting on the 405 freeway a while back, and sitting is pretty much a good term for it because walking would be way too generous. I'm looking at these massive lanes of cars choking a cement freeway that is perhaps one of the ugliest places in the state of California. And I started to think, why do we have these freeways? Whose idea was this? This has got to be the worst way to get around that's ever been invented. And of course, it was put together by public committees, government committees, bureaucrats getting together and deciding where people need to go. Of course, it was detached from the market, detached from any other idea of where things need to be. Transportation in the past in Southern California with the Red Line trains and everything else was based on profit and where people need to go and where they're coming from, but not these freeways. You can't get around anywhere in Orange County. You really can't. It was designed to get through Orange County, not around in Orange County. So getting anywhere takes about an hour. It's unbelievable. And the traffic congestion is nasty. Why is it nasty? Because they're poorly planned. Public committees are terrible at planning, terrible at looking ahead. Look at all the closed schools, closed grade schools in almost every community because they build a school thinking, well, hey, there's this many kids, let's build this school. Never thinking about how the demographics would go, never thinking about the ebbs and flows of fertility, never thinking about any of that. I'm in a thriving city of 200,000 people with a ton of schools closed and rented out to other groups because they didn't plan ahead. Lakeville, Minnesota, where I used to live, brand new suburb. There's some schools that are just a few years old that get closed because they weren't thinking about where they were putting them. This happens all the time in public institutions because public institutions don't have a bottom line in the same sense that the private sector does. So the traffic is gnarly. They're designed badly. They're ugly. Ugly. Yeah. Freeways are the only thing that graffiti improves it. It's just slabs of gray concrete. What were these people thinking? In one of the greatest climates in the world, a Mediterranean climate, they put these ugly things through the city, and it almost kills your soul to drive from Orange County to LAX because there's nothing good to look at. You look at a blimp with a Goodyear blimp. It's on the right when you're going to the airport. And there's a man holding a golf club. I think it used to be a Midas muffler man, but now it's a golf course, and he's holding a golf club. That's about it. And there's a rundown sign for an atomic workers union or something. It's so ugly and deadly dangerous. We have Vietnam-level casualties. I mean, like, took the whole war every year on our roads in America. You know, but somehow that's okay. We just shrug that off, thinking, well, we lose a few 10,000s of people on the freeway every year, on the freeways. But it's important that we have these things because they're ugly. They're badly planned. They're dangerous, deadly dangerous, one of the most dangerous places in America to be, if not the most dangerous place to be. To say nothing of the pollution. Good Lord, the pollution in Southern California, almost all of it comes from automobiles on the freeway, spending way too much time on the freeway. Why do they spend so much time spewing gas into the air? Because the traffic is so bad. Why is the traffic bad? Because it's planned so bad. Oy, who decided to build these things? What were they thinking? And the urban sprawl that it created, we just gobble up land. Well, let's build a freeway out here so people an hour and a half away can drive downtown L.A. And it just becomes one big strip mall, and people end up spending all their time in cars. And it's very useless time in the car. In fact, it requires 100% of your attention. You can't even talk on the phone. Otherwise, you're in a very good chance of getting in an accident. So everyone's worried that someone's going to catch them looking at their phone. And so we're we're all paranoid driving along on the 405 at about 12 miles an hour. And this is just ludicrous that we would think of getting around this way. Who would ever design something that is so dangerous, so filthy, so polluting, so inefficient, so wasting of everyone's time, and creating an urban jungle? Why do we have these things? Who decided to put these together? And people think of the freeways as a free market thing, and public transportation as socialist craziness. Let's vote that out. Let's build another freeway lane. I'm not a big fan of public transportation either. I think we should have private mass transportation. It worked great for the United States for a long, long time, and it worked really well for the Eastern Seaboard. It worked really well for Europe, and most all of our efficient train lines and commuter lines were built by private companies. Why? Because they knew where people were going, and they thought they would help them get there, and that they would charge them for it, and it works really, really well. So I want you to imagine L.A. with no freeways. Imagine it. There'd never been freeways in Southern California. Imagine 17 million people living in an area a fraction the size of the urban sprawl that we have now, a good proportion of it made of concrete and asphalt, which is a total waste of space. I was driving down a street in Huntington Beach today on the way back from church, and it's probably 6 lanes wide going through a neighborhood and almost no cars on it ever. I'm thinking, why pave so much land? What are we thinking here? Well, we've got to have wide roads in every one of our tracks so that fire trucks can get in there really fast. Well, fire trucks shouldn't get into a neighborhood fast. There's kids there, for goodness sake. I mean, just do we need, 4-lane roads going through our tracts? Do we need to just pave everything? Imagine L.A. without the freeways. It would be a compact, beautiful city like San Francisco, except with better weather. Imagine that. Imagine that. Mark Twain said he's never been so cold as summertime in San Francisco. And imagine Southern California with a beautiful Mediterranean city where most people were outside, not in their cars, outside, walking around in beautiful, crowded areas where there's a hum of activity and a buzz going on, and people are just out looking at each other, walking around, shopping, and these wonderful urban passageways where people are enjoying the fresh air and the sunshine and not being locked up and indoors. You're indoors when you're in a car. Why would we have an indoor transportation thing here? We could be walking, we'd be enjoying ourselves, we could have monorails going all over the place, which, by the way, the Allwig Company offered to do for free a generation or two ago, and the LA City Council in its infinite wisdom said, no, we don't need that. And the red lines, you don't perhaps know about the red lines. The red lines were private trains, and they were the fastest, most efficient, and most profitable, and certainly the largest urban transit system in the world. And the theory is that the corporations kicked them out, but it's really not true. The government decided they were going to build freeways, and the government decided that they would take over the public sector, and the road system took over and against the private system, which was emission-free, or low emission certainly, and very efficient, and worked great. Everybody who rode it loved it. Monorails, red lines, trolleys, bicycles all over the place. Imagine Orange County, the San Fernando Valley, and the Inland Empire still being lush and green with agriculture like lungs for the city, and pedestrians all over the place. This is the city we could add, but no, we had to build freeways. And the truth is, if the government had just stayed out of it, then the private sector would have solved this. Well, the government has to provide transportation. No, it doesn't. For most of human history, that hasn't been the case. If you have a desire for people to go from point A to point B, that's called a demand. And guess what shows up in a free market? Supply. People show up with ways to get them from point A to point B. There's probably 5 or 6 methods of transportation we haven't even thought of yet because of the The freeways soaking up all of our time. Can you imagine getting a month of your year back every year, which is pretty much what we spend on these stupid roads? And it's like getting an extra 4 weeks of vacation. Just not sitting there in these little smelly machines. We'd all have one car, perhaps, or not even that. One car, almost one car, probably, average per family. And that'd be enough to kind of haul things around, go to the grocery store, pick things up, probably a truck, so we could do those kind of things. But would we need a train, a car to get around the city? No, it'd get in the way, kind of like New York or San Francisco or Boston. But people would come to this city by the millions just to see it, Nobody does that in LA now. They come to see certain sites, but they would come to see the city and to feel the urban energy of almost everyone outdoors almost every day. I said, well, it's the pollution controls that we've put in since the freeways that have really helped us clean up the air. Well, sure, the pollution controls have cleaned up the air some, but the government, which gave us the pollution controls, created the pollution in the first place by building these freeways. Had we not had them, we'd still have the virtually pollution-free situation we had before the freeways were built. Ask anybody who's older, who was living back then. They loved it. It was gorgeous. It was paradise. And we really need to let the market take over here. Think about it. Where do people go on vacation here in Southern California? Go to Disneyland. Why? Because Disneyland is pedestrian, or there's no cars. People have a vacation for a whole day from cars. They walk around. They see people. They stop in. It's human-sized, not car-sized. And people just take a little vacation to the way things used to be. The whole world used to be like Disneyland. It was pedestrian-oriented. People saw people. People enjoyed people. People interacted. There was a buzz about things. And now we drive around and we have garage door openers. So think about it. My neighborhood, I'm going to close with this. My neighborhood, Huntington Beach, is a beautiful downtown neighborhood in a sea of tract housing around it that was built up later. And this beautiful little village downtown is a cross between a kind of a county seat in Ohio and Waikiki because of the weather. It's beautiful. Hundreds of thousands of people show up in the summer just to walk around in a pedestrian area. We've got alleys, we've got sidewalks, we've got houses close together, we've got a pier, we've got the whole, it's just beautiful. Why? Why is it here? Was it public planning? Was it some planning district? No. It was a red line stop, much like Seal Beach, just north of us. It was a red line stop. People would walk from their homes to the red line, go where they needed to go. And what we have here is a monument to the way things could have been without freeways. Well, that's all for today on Life and Liberty Radio. Thanks so much for sharing this part of your spiritual journey with me. Now, the views on this program are not necessarily those of my advertisers, sponsors, places I work, or do business with. They're purely my own, but I'm sharing them with you, so share your ideas with me. Write me on Twitter at Liberty House, LIBERTYHOUS, no E. Until next time, let's continue dreaming and working for a free and spiritually grounded society.